Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Bonsoir. Welcome to our session that's named we're here to discuss today about the renovation of the global building stock at scale. The last two words, at scale, are especially important today. We want to speak about good examples, good ideas, best practices, but especially how we can get them to scale into practice.
Hello. My name is Ulla Kramer. I'm working for a regional government, the province of Overijssel in the Netherlands, and I'm an international project leader. And I led the project Indo-Zero, which is actually a smart renovation factory, where we developed the blueprint for this factory. And currently I'm leading another project where we are developing a digital tool to accelerate residential area development.
And my name's Uwe Bigalke from the German Energy Agency. I work for DENA for 20 years now, and I'm dedicated to ideas and innovation to get renovation to scale. This is going to be our topic.
And first, I would like to have some opening remarks from Dr. Lutz Morgenstern. He's head of the division from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action in Germany. And I also want to introduce Mr. Lee. He is he's a Deputy Director General from Moorhurt, and he's working for the Department of Planning, Finance and Foreign Affairs in China. So Mr. Lee came a long way.
Please give them a warm welcome.
So, shall I start? Yeah. Colleagues, partners, drivers of the global energy transition in the building sector, and of course, Mr. Lee. As co-chairs of the Energy Efficiency in Buildings Task Group of the Intergovernmental Energy Efficiency Hub, it is such a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to open this important thematic session, focusing on practical, affordable, and proven solutions that can help us accelerate building renovation and retrofitting rates. We all know the immense challenge the decarbonization of the building sector poses to achieving our global climate goals. Fortunately, politics finally seems to be catching up and ready to acknowledge the need for prioritizing efficiency as the first fuel of the global energy transition. At the COP28 just recently, governments agreed to double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements and to triple global renewable energy capacity by 2030, one of the main achievements of this COP. This is a powerful commitment that can only be achieved if we accelerate efforts to transform the building sector. Moreover, the EU has recently passed an ambitious energy efficiency directive and is about to pass renewed energy performance of buildings directive that will focus on raising the minimum energy performance of the worst performing buildings. And in Germany, we have recently enacted the Energy Efficiency Act that for the first time created a cross-sectoral legal framework for energy efficiency in Germany. In the building sector, we have passed the hugely ambitious Building Energy Act and refocused our public funding scheme. It's 13 billion euro in 2023, away from new construction to retrofitting. Now it is time to move from ambition to action, and therefore I'm very grateful for the French government and the Global ABC to host this forum in Marseille for the first time. It is an excellent platform for all stakeholders to meet, exchange on, and discuss real solutions that can work at scale. In the Buildings Task Group of the Energy Efficiency Hub, we are also currently focusing on the topic of deep retrofits and how our member countries understand, support, and implement the concept. Therefore, I am now very much looking forward to the presentations by the different stakeholders present and wish everyone an exciting and inspiring discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morgenstern. Please have a seat. Now we welcome Mr. Lee for some introducing words.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Climate change poses serious challenges to the survival and the development of mankind. China has constructed a 1+N policy system for carbon peaking and neutrality, and has carried out extensive and in-depth actions. The building sector is an important part of carbon emissions. Over the past 30 years, China has been continuing to carry out energy-saving and decarbonization work in buildings, and has made significant progress. We have basically formulated a set of systems with clear goals, policies, standards, and management. A series of technical and institutional barriers that restrict energy saving and decarbonization work in buildings have been gradually resolved. On the aspect of energy efficiency in new buildings, the level has been raised through continuous upgrading of building energy efficiency standards. By end of 2021, energy efficient buildings accounted for more than 63.7% of urban residential area, with an aggregated construction of ultra-low and near-zero energy consumption building area of over 10 million square meters. On the aspect of energy-saving renovation or retrofitting of existing buildings, we have combined the work of renovation of old urban districts with clean winter heating in northern regions. By the end of 2021, a total of more than 1.6 billion square meters of renovation had been completed. We have started the work of energy efficiency for public buildings in some key cities of China, and a model for energy-saving renovation of public buildings has been initially formed with market mechanisms as the main and the government guidance as a supplement, with a cumulative of 295 million square meters of energy-saving renovation being implemented nationwide. On the aspect of application of renewable energy in buildings, mandatory policy standards and norms have been used to promote the large-scale and efficient application of renewable energy in buildings. By the end of 2021, China's building solar thermal application area had reached more than 5 billion square meters. The installed capacity of solar photovoltaic has reached 18,200 megawatts, and the shallow geothermal energy had been applied to about 467 million square meters of building areas. And the replacement rate of renewable energy in urban area had reached 6%, which had effectively reduced carbon emissions. Next step, in order to effectively control the increase of carbon emissions in the construction sector, China will focus on the following 6 key task areas. Number 1, promoting the energy saving and the decarbonization level of new buildings in urban area. Number 2, promoting the renovation of existing buildings. Number 3, promoting a low carbon transformation of building energy use. Number 4, strengthening the operation and the management of buildings in cities. Number 5, promoting energy saving and decarbonization in agricultural buildings. Last but not least, promoting green and low carbon construction. As a responsible developing country, China will actively implement the Building Breakthrough Project, strengthen international collaboration, share our useful and practical experiences in building energy saving and decarbonization. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Li. Thank you very much, Dr. Lutz Morgenstern. So we've already heard about policies. Ambitious policies are really good, but now we want to see how those policies can really get into practice. I'm happy to welcome Ian Hutchcroft from the Energiesprong Global Alliance to speak about some practical insights how to get those policy ideas into practice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I press these buttons in a way that's going to make something move? Yes. Can we go back? Yeah, okay. So scale up. We're talking about scale up of zero carbon renovation. So what is the scale that we have to achieve? Thinking in a European, can we go forward one? Great, thank you. So what is the scale? Thinking about a European context, 200 million homes in Europe, we have to make 20,000 homes zero carbon every day. Starting on the 1st of January this year, finishing on the 31st of December 2050. That's 20,000 homes a day, every day, 7 days a week. We're a long way behind, and we're getting more behind as time goes on. So what's stopping us delivering at scale? Well, we think in the Energy Strong movement, we think of this as a systemic problem. And by that, we mean there's lots of smaller problems that can't be solved on their own without the other problems being solved as well. So there's the problem of finance. Who's going to pay for this? Governments can't afford to pay for all of this scale. Building owners don't have money spare in their pocket. We need a way to finance this with real money, not magic money that we've shaken from a tree somewhere. The cost at the moment is too high. We have to find a way to drive the cost down, and that makes it easier to finance. At the moment, people don't really want this for their homes so much. We have to really help people see that this plays into their aspirations and they want this to happen to their home. And we have to think from the outset about how we do this at a national scale. That's my country there, if you hadn't noticed, of the United Kingdom. We have to start with that end of the whole country in mind. And we have to make sure it actually works. We have to make sure that the performance is there. How do we do this? Well, in the Energy Strong world, we think of doing it like this. Start with the performance. Procure the outcomes that we want. We want zero carbon energy, we want comfortable homes, and we want it to be affordable. So let's procure those outcomes and let the supply chain design the best solution to do that. And let's make them verify that that performance really happens. And why is that important? Well, they have to work. But also, if performance is verified, then savings are verified as well. And if everybody trusts that those savings, those financial savings in energy and maintenance costs, long-term are really going to happen, that makes it a lot easier to finance. We can finance the capital cost of the long-term savings. Cost and demand and scale. We have to do this industrially. We have to do the most of the work in factories and not on building sites. That's how we get quality, that's how we get productivity, and that's how we get the cost down and the job done at scale. The other thing we have to bear in mind is that zero carbon buildings have to operate within the whole energy system. That red line at the bottom, that's the total amount of electricity that Europe generates every year currently. I think it's about 3,000 terawatt hours. The black line that goes like a roller coaster between winter and summer and winter, that's what we currently use. That's the energy we currently use to heat our buildings. Trying to create enough electricity to replace that fossil fuel that we use to heat our buildings is not sustainable, one for one. Okay, we could use heat pumps. 3 units of heat, 1 unit of electricity. Great, we reduce that demand by maybe about 1/3. But that's still too much renewable electricity to add to our grid feasibly. We also have to bear in mind, see that big spike there? What happens on the coldest 10 days of the year? When it's really cold everywhere, the wind doesn't blow, We don't make electricity from wind, and it's winter, so solar isn't so great. We have to design a solution that works for every home in every country that is sustainable to generate electricity for. We have to use heat pumps, but we have to use fabric as well to get it down to a feasible amount of additional electricity, which is those blue lines at the bottom. So bear that in mind as well. We have to move away from all this work being done by people next to homes in the outdoors. You can't do it when it's too hot. You can't do it when it's too cold. You can't do it when it's raining. You can't do it when it's dark. Too inefficient, too costly, too slow. We have to do the work in factories. On the left is a Dutch factory making panels with insulation, with triple glazed windows and doors, with the final facade bespoke for each house, installed quickly. On the right is a factory in Nottingham, in England, that is employing local people, retrofitting, renovating social housing in that city, and now it's exporting to other cities like London. We have to industrialize. And it's the same for the electrics and the plumbing as well. We have to stop sending skilled tradespeople out to houses, spending most of their working week in vans driving around. We need solutions that does the work in factories, like these porch pods, where the resident gets a new porch on their house. Great, I've got somewhere to hang my coat and it keeps the rain off the door. But it's also where their heat pump and their ventilation and their energy storage is as well. We also, as well as industrializing, we need to really work on this new business case. Every country is slightly different, so the business case is going to be different in every country. But basically here, this is kind of the Dutch and the British example of how it's working in our countries, is where we use some of what was the resident's energy bill. That energy bill is now reduced, and some of that saving is shared with the landlord, and the landlord uses that regular income every month, every year for the lifetime of the building to help finance the capital cost of doing the zero carbon renovation. So, what does this look like? If you procure the outcomes that we want, speed, zero carbon, warm and affordable, it can look like this. This is 2018 in the Netherlands. Trying to do retrofit in one day. So they've turned up at dawn. You go out to work and to school, and these guys get going, installing these factory-made panels, clipping them to the property, wrapping it up like a tea cozy. Very quick job to connect the electrics in the energy module to the internal electrics. The only internal work is making this nice new system around the thick wall, thick windowsill. The roof gets installed quickly, a very low cost, very light roof system over the top. The PV panels go on the top of that. This is the afternoon now. Oh, and we've got a bit of time, we've got an hour left. Why don't we extend this property and make a nice new ground floor bathroom as well? Because we've got 30 minutes left to the end of the day. And you come home from work and school, and your house has been transformed. Is this my house? This is a new build house, isn't it? My house looks beautiful. It's zero carbon. It's warm, guaranteed, every day of the year, and I can afford the bill. And you do that not in just one house, but the whole street and the whole neighborhood, and you've renovated the look and feel of the neighborhood, all paid for by money that was being wasted on energy and maintenance. And it's not about one house, of course. That was a pilot done in one day. It's about doing whole neighborhoods at this sort of scale. So how do we create the conditions for scale? Well, it has to be likable. People have to want this on their house. It has to look great, feel great, it has to be aspirational. The quality has to be really high. People have to trust it. It has to be done quickly with very minimal disruption. And that key word, this has to be financeable. Those savings have to be real and guaranteed. So we have to create a market. We have to create this virtual circle of a market that's growing with an industry that's growing with it, that performs to a high quality consistently, and when that volume is driven, the price comes down. But to start off with, we need to create that market first of all, and it has to be a multi-year market, so the industry can trust it and invest it, because they know they are going to be doing 20,000 homes every day for 20 years. So it's worth investing in a factory that looks like an automotive factory. The key challenge we have is we don't have a lot of time. These technologies, PV panels, it's taken 45 years to get them to a cost-effective mass market. Cars, even longer, 125 years to get a cost-effective electric zero-carbon vehicle. And smartphones, that took 30 years to go from the first cell phones to what we have today. We've only got 10 years to get this industry flying. How do we achieve this? This quick transformation from an old on-site way of doing things, this nascent embryonic way of doing this with industrialized components, which is currently at a very small scale. We have to have investment from governments. Only governments can help make this market so quickly. We have to have investment, we have to have teams, market development teams, like the Energiesprong teams, to really make this work happen. And we have to have an enabling policy environment, which isn't for 1 year or 5 years, it's for 10 and 20 years. Germany is a great example. The German government have done this over the last 7 years. They've created a market which is now worth 300 million euros. Next year, it's set to become another 250 million on top of that in 1 year. And it's consistent investment in innovation with a subsidy for costs and a market development team of about 20 people, it's not huge, that have made this happen, been the catalysts bringing people together. And this is some German schemes. This is that Dutch one, like the video, but done over a whole terrace. This is a multi-story building, and I'm really close to the end, honestly. This is the first one in France. You'll see a bit more of this from Fabian later. This is a French apartment block. This is the first Energiesprong scheme in Italy. Not only is it climate proof, it is seismic proof as well, earthquake proof. And we could do lots of things while we're doing zero carbon retrofit. This is neighborhood scale. We could do extensions. And I've got to show you some pictures from home. This is the first British one. And we've done many more in Britain as well. And I'm sorry I've taken 1 minute extra, but I was really quick coming up from the stage, so you can grant me that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian. I would like now to invite 4 other speakers. They will give their perspective on different sectors.
Please come to stage. And I would like to invite the first speaker to start. That is Fabien Lasserre. Fabien is working for Villogia, which is a housing association in France. He's over there. And he's giving us the perspective of housing association and how, as a housing association, you can get retrofit to scale. Fabien.
Okay, I think it works. Yeah. Okay. I would like today to share with you humbly our experience in Villogia. I would like to share with you humbly a solution that gives hope for the retrofitting of the houses compliant with the goals of 2050 in France and in Europe. So, Villogia is a social housing company managing over 85,000 dwellings in all France. And we build each year around 2,000 dwellings, and each year we retrofit over 2,000 units. In 2015, of course, we were aware of a challenge, of a key challenge that we have to renovate all the buildings in France and for Villogia also. So my CEO asked to me and say, okay, Fabien, we need to renovate, if all the calculations are good, we need to renovate 80% of housing stock up to 2050. And it's impossible to achieve with technology of today. So this question was in 2015. So I say, okay, as head of Innovation Transition Department, I try to find a solution. So I began a benchmark in Europe and in the US and in Canada. And in fact, we find some solution presented just before. And so we tried strongly and as we can to develop the first pilot in France. This is the picture of the first pilot, the 10 first dwellings delivered in 2018 of the renovation of building compliant with 2050 goals. We reduced the energy demand of this building of 75% after the retrofitting. The retrofitting of the insulation took only 1 day for the walls and the windows prefabricated on the factory located around 50 kilometers of the site. So it was a completely success. People are really happy with this new house. The buildings are really resilient because even if it's during the winter, the temperature is really low, or even now there's really hot weather in the north of France because this is located near Lille in the north of France. The temperature inside the house is between 20 and 26 degrees. So we were really happy. It was really a success, but it's not enough to reach 70,000 units to be retrofit up to 2050 for one social housing company. So we tried to change the scale, and then we had some issue. And I want to share with you this issue, because in fact, issue and solution. Because in fact, that's we've done in Villogia, beginning with 10 houses, and then a district of 160 housing, and then working now on districts of 200 housing, is a completely different approach than having only one building, even one building of 100 housing retrofit or one 10-row housing retrofit. Here, you have a whole district of 160 houses retrofit in the same way of the 10 before. So on one day, you have all the envelope, the roof, the facade, the windows, everything is insulated. And of course, it's quite disturbing for the people inside, because one day you say to Mr. John, you say, okay, I will retrofit all your facade that you're living here for 20 years. And you say, okay. After one day, the house is completely different externally. And then on the second day, you say, hi, Mrs. Martin, and now it's your turn. You're going to insulate all the building. So you have really to explain to the people, to the tenant, to the inhabitants what's going on. You have to explain to the inhabitants surrounding the district what's going on with all the trucks coming to the different, to the site. So this is really something really important. You have the last point is you have to work really carefully on the architectural and urbanistic project of a building and the district. I would like to show the last picture. No, it's not possible. The last project. Anyway, it's another project of 200 units. So that's why I wanted to share with you. It's not the same thing working even with a really high successfully solution on 10 houses and then handling whole district. So I think that we have to focus on how to work with the tenant and work with the inhabitants and work with the providers in order to manage the scaling up of a retrofitting.
Thank you very much, Fabien. please take my seat over here, and I would like to welcome from Rabot Dutilleux, a construction company, Rodolphe, who is head of innovation and sustainability.
Thank you. Okay, guys, let's warm up and play a game. I will use 4 big words during that little speech, and I'd like you to react when I say those words, okay? You can boo, or you can clap, or you can stand up, but please do something. It's too cold in this room. So the 4 words are going to be radical. Yeah, radical, yeah. Very good. Standard, yep. Massive, and scale, of course, otherwise always going to be cranky, okay? So you ready? Let's go then. So, well, sorry, does this work? Yes, fantastic. Rabot Dutilleux is a century-old family business active across the entire construction and property value chain. Our raison d'être is something like building a sustainable future together. As good builders, we believe in science more than anything else, of course. And what has science been telling us for years and years? Well, that our world is going to decarbonize either forcibly by natural regulation, such as wars, less funny then, famine or disease, or radically decarbonize voluntarily by radical actions to decarbonize. Radical actions to decarbonize. Let's use this one for the latest. So to radically decarbonize voluntarily, science told us that we have to retrofit all existing buildings, as Ian said, by 2050. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. For my sector, that means extraordinary growth. Wow, growth to decarbonize. Extraordinary. So, of course, Rabot Dutilleux's family shareholders have rationally instructed their French subsidiary, Rabot Dutilleux Construction, and their Belgian ones, Louis de Waal, to launch a major decarbonization program, a major one. This program has 3 components. 1, a trading component of at least 8 hours for 100% of our employees, all of them, okay? And the vast majority of those people discover the reality of the situation and its seriousness during that training. This is true. Number 2, a tool and solution section to build a catalog of standardized construction action. Standardized, come on. Okay, thank you. So standardized construction actions using low carbon solution. That means use as little material as possible to ensure that the material used is recycled or low carbon or biosourced. And finally, that the best energy efficiency and renewable energy protection is always selected. Third, number 3, a full carbon footprint every year with a 2030 target in line or beyond the COP21 Paris Agreement. Is this easy? No. Absolutely not. Our transformation is underway. While the target is very clear, the road ahead remains perilous for our employees. They are scared. Yes, the renovation markets are indeed growing strongly. They are. Yes, the market for low-carbon material is growing. So how quickly can we support the transformation of site workers' practices from concrete to timber or bio-based product? How quickly can we support the transition from traditional building practices to off-site industrial construction, as Ian once again showed us? How quickly can we train new build workers in energy-efficient renovation? How can we recruit on a massive scale? On a massive scale for a sector that until now was not that sexy. This is our daily lives at Rabot Dutilleux. It is stressful, but it's also fascinating, and that's what we think managers and executives are all about. So we believe this is the change or die situation. Rabot de Tilleul chooses to change now, and this could be massive. What about you? Thanks.
Thank you, Rudolf. Hello? Yeah. Next, I would like to introduce Aline Correa from ENROUX. And it's a French National Agency of Urban Renewal. And she will give you some perspective on the finance and urbanist approach for large-scale renovation.
Thank you. So, good morning. I'm here to share how the action of the French National Agency for Urban Renewal, ENROUX, helps taking local urban and social context into account on our subject of mass building renovation. So, ENROUX stands as France's leading force for urban renewal. We target the revitalization of priority districts which face the most important processes of social segregation coupled with urban dysfunctions in France. The heart of our mission is to reduce territorial inequalities while uplifting the urban environment of those districts, paying close attention to the renovation and reconstruction of housing for the poorest. A big part of the districts where we intervene, even if it's not exclusive, they were originally large housing developments that gradually became highly segregated areas. The agency was created in 2004 to implement the National Program for Urban Renewal, and PNRU. And this program, it was implemented from 2004 to 2020, and it concerns over 500 neighborhoods, 4 million inhabitants, 48.4 billion euros on investments, and 11.2 billion euros of subsidies from ENROUX. And the actual program, which is being implemented since 2014 until 2030. It concerns 450 neighborhoods for 3 million inhabitants, 50 billion euros on investments, and 12 billion of subsidies from ENROUX. So, behind all those numbers, the essential objectives of the national programs we lead are to increase housing, social, and functional diversity of those districts that lived most as dormitory towns, to adapt the density of the neighborhood to its context, to connect the neighborhood to the territory, and to foster the mobility of the inhabitants, to foster energy efficiency of the buildings and ecological transitions in a global approach, and to achieve an overall quality, whether for the urban project, for architectural projects, and real estate programs, considering daily questions, uses, management, and safety issues. So, the action of ENROUX, it contributes to foster the sector of building renovation. Our programs finance over 485,000 housing renovations, social housing renovations since 2004, with a substantial impact on the requalification of the building stock, notably, especially of social landlords like Vilogia, who spoke before me. So to illustrate all of this, the previous, the urban renewal project of Mons-en-Barœul in the northern France, je vais le dire correctement en français, Mons-en-Barœul, désolé. It's a good example. The Nouveau Mons priority district's main characteristics are over 9,500 total inhabitants, over 61 hectares of total area, and over 40% of poverty rate. And we see that we had 45% of the city's population on 20% of the city's area. So the density gap between the district and the context and the town is a marker of those districts. And to achieve the urban renewals goals, the global project for Nouveau Mons includes over 751 demolitions, twice as of this as social housing rehabilitations with high levels of energy performance and architectural quality, 11 public buildings, 18 hectares of public space redevelopment, and this, we're talking about 15 years of transformation under an overall urban project. So to conclude, the first program's interventions on Mont-Saint-Barreul, they allowed a positive evolution of the neighborhood, especially the residential and landscape qualities, as you may see by the images, and the beginning of a change on how the neighborhood is perceived by locals. That tendency, it was possible, especially thanks to the local qualities of the district near Lille and with a good access by public transport. But the increase of social diversity of the neighborhood is still an objective of the new program, the actual program, considering the extension of the priority districts. And the local officials, they target an increase of functional diversity so that the housing offer, and especially the one from building renovation, may be attractive to all kinds of demanders, ensure social diversity and a better quality of life for all. Thank you.
And last but not least, I would like to welcome Liliana Campos Arriga. She's speaking for the Global Program for Energy Efficiency in Building, and she will focus on social housing pilots in Mexico and the scaling up of the projects.
Well, thank you. And I am so very glad to be part of this discussion. It's very interesting. And I would like to start by saying that the built environment in Mexico is very diverse. I'm very broad in terms of quality, technologies, and scale. So from the Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings at GIZ in Mexico, we have been supporting the Mexican government on both new construction and existing buildings for housing and non-residential buildings as well. Today, I will focus on social housing, but to have a common understanding on the social housing in Mexico, and I'm leaving you this picture here because it's very different of what you have been seeing in this panel today. We have two main ways of producing housing in Mexico. So one way is the self-produced house, where the end user chooses everything, chooses the plot of land, chooses the type of building that they are going to be building, the materials, the financing means, and the time where they are going to be building. This is what you are seeing in these pictures is that sort of housing production. And this accounts for the 60% of house production in Mexico. So implementing any energy efficiency, renewable energy technology in this sort of house production is a challenge. Every house is different, every orientation is different, and the way to measure, as just Ian said, to measure the savings, it becomes really difficult. So I am leaving you a QR code there because we supported Mexican government on a platform focused for the end user and to provide information for them to make better decisions, basically, if you want to have a look. So the other type of housing production is what we call the commercial way of producing houses, where the developer chooses the land, the orientation, the prototype, the materials, and so on. So basically, the end user just goes to the market and see what is available there and buys a house, basically. And this is the low-hanging fruit, because these prototypes are replicated 1,000 times. It could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. You could have this house in Mexico City in a temperate weather, and you can have this same house, the same materials in Cancun with very different conditions. So we conducted pilot programs in both sorts of housing production. This is what I'm going to be focusing about. We ran a pilot program in a hot, dry climate in 2 cities in Mexico, Mexicali and Hermosillo. And we coupled with a founding trust in Mexico that is part of the electricity company that supplies, we have only one electricity company that supplies electricity power to the houses. and they have access to the historical electricity bills of the people. And basically this is a trust that exists now, and they go to the house and say, okay, you have a high electricity bill, this is the solution that we have for you. But they work with commercial providers, and basically what they offer is what they are selling. So if they are selling efficient air conditioners, they will offer that to you. So the pilot program focuses on the whole house approach and the step-by-step renovation. And basically, you can see the different steps. So the first step was changing appliances, putting thermal insulation in the roofs, changing the air conditioning unit for a high-efficiency one, and I lost the image, but you see it, okay. and then the second step was adding thermal insulation in the walls and having a solar water heater. You can see there's a combination of passive and active measures there. The third step was just adding high-performance windows and a mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. I think I have another one. Yes. So you can see what we achieved. We did 30 houses in our pilot program, but it scaled to 7,300 homes, and we improved the conditions of almost 30,000 people in the city. So basically, this founding trust changed from financing just one technology after other to the whole house approach with packages and the different ways to be financing these solutions. So people is key because they are deciding basically what they want to apply into their house. And all this, the technical challenge was to design these packages according to the debt capacity of the people. So they cannot afford anything more than this. And to put some context on this, a social housing of this type, we are talking about 55,000 euro to 60,000 euro total price of the house. So imagine if you have like a technology that is expensive than that, is not really feasible for massive retrofitting. And I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please have a seat.
I'm very sorry about, because here our presentation crashed, so the speaker, you need to improvise, and I'm very happy how you did that. But now we have a panel discussion, and for that I would like to invite Sanne de Wit. She is Head of Ideas from Energiesprong Global Alliance.
Yeah, please have a seat, Sanne, in the middle. I would start with the first question to Fabien. We've heard quite a bit about new products, about innovation on one side, but also, when I understood you right, new processes on the construction side. What is your influence as a housing association to get these innovation into the market, to move, like we've seen from Rabot Dutilleux, Rodolphe, like to move construction companies towards those solutions? What is your influence as a housing association?
I think that we have two influences. The first one is to discuss with different stakeholders before the procurement phase. We have to discuss with the architect, with the engineer, with construction companies, with mayors, in order to spread the different solutions that we have found on other countries or in another region in France. That's really important, and that's what we have done before the 10 houses in M. During 1 year, we've done that. It was really useful to understand a new concept, a new solution, innovative solution. If you just create a new contract, a new procurement, and say, that's it, you forgot that you have to listen to people, to stakeholders, like you have to listen to tenants. So that's the first influence that I think that we have. The second influence is how to translate the needs and this innovation into procurement, but focusing on the needs, what you really need. Do we need to focus on energy or indoor climate and the energy bill for the tenants? So I've really to think and to make clearly it appears in the procurement document. So I think the two influences is to discuss before with all the stakeholders, companies, and then to clearly express the needs and the procurement documents.
Okay, but so procurement is a way for you to drive building companies forward, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yes, we take a lot of attention to how to write the procurement, how to define the selection phase of the candidates and the companies. It's really important.
Thank you.
I have a question for Alina. It is, how can we involve urbanism in the process effectively? And what are, according to you, the challenges, the main challenges?
I didn't explain in my presentation how those projects are built in locally. And actually the urban renovation projects, they are built on multi-year contracts. They are led by local elected, local élus, les élus locaux, mayors of the territories, together with local partners like social landlords, like state administrations, and many other people. So when we're talking about urban projects on existing environments, we have an important issue of coordination of all those actors, of all those players, and how to structure those partnerships in a way everyone finds its place. But also I think as a practitioner before, because before being at Enru, I was an urban designer. What I saw as the main difficulty of an urban project taking into long-term goals is to keep the project approach alive. Is to have in mind that we have 15 years of projects, sometimes more time than that, and we may have the tendency to have one picture of a project and say that we can just realize it, but it's not quite like that. Actually, conditions evolve, the perceptions evolve, and we have to keep the project alive and have the ability to respond to the living project of the urban fact.
So communication is key in this as well.
Yes, coordination, communication, the ability to make the project a space of dialogue.
Thank you. You want to add?
Yeah, I think it's really, we have a perfect articulation between, because we are talking about scaling up and how it's difficult. We found a technical solution, it works, but it works only on a small district, 100, 200 units. And with the government tools, with Enru, you're able to make a planification on the whole part of a city, much more bigger than only 100 or 200 or 300 units, and to take with you social housing, mayors, inhabitants, and even private landlords. So I think it's really, talking about scaling up, it's really a good articulation between two actors of it.
Thank you. I have a question for Liliana. It's about the global transferability and the scale-up needed. And what would be the first element that need to be addressed on a global scale?
Yes, this is like a difficult question because there's no silver bullet, no, for every country has different realities. But I would say like the end user perspective is key to take into account. They are going to be finally the ones that are taking the decisions, what they are going to be installing in their houses, when they are going to be installing, how they are going to be paying, what financing means they're going to be using. So this is something, at least in the Global South, something that we have to take into consideration. As well, financial instruments that are really tailored to their needs and the debt capacity, basically. So I would say these two key aspects are the ones that are going to be transferable in the Global South, at least.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about different things you need to consider: finance, new products, innovation, the people, tenants, all their needs. To me, it's a little bit like, wow, it's so many things you have to consider at the same time to make it really happen. Maybe a question to Sanne. You've worked on projects like these. How do you get all these things together? Is it like, can a government do that? Can a housing association do that? How can you get all those ideas and things together?
Well, I think I am a colleague of Ian, so I work for the Energiesprong, and like you have seen before, we did those whole wrap around houses retrofits, and for that we work together with housing organizations and with construction companies, because we had the idea of like scanning a house, putting that information into a factory, having a result 10 days retrofit, but obviously that product was not at the market at the moment when we invented the idea. So therefore we started working with construction companies, with housing organizations to really find out, can we realize something like this? And if so, how many houses do we need for construction companies to be able to really invest in that and to innovate? And that's like the core of Energiesprong. How we did it in each country was really working towards a deal, like a deal of 11,000 houses, 6,000 houses in another country, to really work together with construction companies, housing organizations, with government to enable regulation around it, and with financiers. So you always need those four groups: housing organizations, construction companies, government, and financial institutions to kickstart a market, to create that initial market. The way we did that was working through market development teams. So it's like an independent group of people that can be in the middle of all those entities to work towards something like a deal to kickstart a market. So I think this was really helpful because we could be independent. So
if I understand it right, is if you go to a construction company as housing association and you buy one single project, then actually they'll do it the same way as they always did, right? But like in your case, 7,000 units, or I think you're doing several hundred units at the same time, you're financing whole areas. I think this is the scale we need to have a change, right? And this is what you organized as initiative, if I understood it right.
yeah, create an initial demand so you can already start at scale, so you can take the risk of innovating as a construction company or investing in such a solution.
Yeah, and that's what we've heard from Ian. This can also get costs down, make it affordable at the same time. And you've talked about the people, like getting all the people on board, the owners, but also the tenants. What are your recipes around that? To maybe you all have something to say to that. How to get the people convinced to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I just spoke, but I mean, it was it was a funny thing for us because we developed, or if I say we, I mean all the construction companies that are in our network, developed like nice solutions. It is a whole wrap around the house, looks like new, being delivered in 10 days, net zero. There you go. So we thought we have this great present for the tenants that are living in social housing. So we went out, presented the project, and everybody sort of, not everybody, but the majority said no. So we were a bit disappointed. And in the Netherlands, 70% of the tenants have to agree to a retrofit before you can actually execute it. But in the end, it actually taught us a lot, because what we learned was when you when you just present something to people and they have nothing to say, when you touch them in their autonomy, resistance arises. So that's what we learned. So in the other projects, we did it the other way around. So we first went out to them, asked them, what do you like about your house? What do you not like about your house? And then the things that came out were actually pretty simple. It was like, we want an extra closet for our shoes, or we hate the squeaky door. So once we started listening and really understood the problems or the things that were going on in their lives, we started including those elements into the concept that we developed. So it does not always have to be super expensive, you know, listening to people's wishes. It can be very simple. And at that point, when we started doing that, we created a solution that they actually wanted to have. So,
Liliana, maybe how did you convince people?
Yeah, that I can tell you that, but I am also very curious on this relationship between the tenant and the owner, no? Because I don't know if they both have to agree. In my case, we treated directly with the owner, which was also the tenant. So the end user was like the one that was taking the decisions. But in your case, like, how does that work? I mean, the people that is living on the house is the people that is paying the bills. So, and what's the role of the landlord there? I'm sorry, I'm just asking questions.
yeah, so yeah, the landlord, in this case, social housing organizations, owns the building. People living in it are paying the bills through the social housing organization, so they have a say. So the landlord cannot just decide to touch the buildings without having the people that are living in it agreeing on it. So it has to be voluntarily. So you have to build up a relationship of trust first before you can present your ideas. So it's a lot of technologies and digitalization, but it's also a lot of people work.
But Fabien, how is it financially? Why do you do it if the tenants say?
Yeah, just to talk about money, I would like to add something, because you said it's 70% of the tenants we have to agree, yes, before retrofitting. In France, it's 50%. So you have to make presentation to explain to people. And the point is, we make a mistake at the beginning of 10 houses in M, because you say, yes, it's a great project, your house is going to be retrofitted in one day with solar panels, your bill is going to be reduced by 80%, your comfort will be really increased. And they say, okay, but we are not guinea pigs. We're just living there. So we don't want your innovation. So they say, okay, it was not really the right speech for them. So you're right. After we are talking about, so what do you need in your house? Oh, I got a door that's not closed. I can't reach my lamp here. Can you change it? And then you check. It's almost 5 or 6 little, technically really little things. And you do that. And at the same time, you change the insulation, everything. And after that, people are really shocked during the process of retrofitting because there's workers, cranes, this kind of thing. And everybody is so happy after that. The 10% at the beginning, nobody was for it, and they said, okay, it's for the planet, so let's do that. I don't care. Then the 160 people in Waterloo, in the north of France, they say, yes, we don't want. And when I say that to the 10 other people from M, they say, but we go with you at the next meeting, and we explain to them that they should do that now, and we did that. And then they say, okay, so we do that now. And I think it's really important for the scaling up to make some experimentation, innovation on maybe more than 100, maybe it's some thousand on an area region. And then you have a proof of concept, and it's really easier after that. And then you go on a standard of renovation, and a new product of renovation.
I'm sorry, I am so happy to hear that we have that in common. Like, even though the construction systems are so different, it seems that the resistance of the tenant is universal, no? And then, basically, yes, you have to listen a lot, not just be talking, just listen a lot to their needs. And yes, there are like 3 or 2 or 5 perhaps little things, and then you can gain their trust on something. And in Mexico, this is very important because basically you are touching people's doors and saying, hey, do you want to renovate in an environment of insecurity, and what do you want? and this is very important. Thank you for sharing this. I don't feel alone anymore.
Nice, very nice. My last question for the moment.
I think we are over the time already.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left. My last question.
No,
Yeah,
over.
I've
I
talked-
don't think we have any more.
I think Tudor allows me a last question. My last question is maybe very short of you. Does this happen like in the countries where you are? Does it just happen alone? Or like will the market forces drive these ideas? Or what does it need to drive those things forward? We've seen very strong actors in your countries, like you've been the actors, or the Energiesprong initiative, you as a housing association. How can we transfer that to other countries, to other regions? What does it need for that?
And if it's possible, with 2 words.
Okay,
Per
I think
person.
that there is always a need for renovation. So this is something that is going to be spreading either way. So, yeah.
I think the main subject would have to give perspective. Keep perspective, financial perspective, long-term perspective.
Yeah, maybe I'm not the right person because I'm part of a market development team, but I think it's really, really relevant to get the right financing and the housing organizations together and the construction companies and everybody in the room to really speed this up.
Yes, I think that we have a technical solution. We just need to improve it. So we have to share this solution because everybody has the same problem, I think. We have the solutions. It's already proved. So just share and go faster.
Okay. Thank you very much to the 4 of you.
Thank you.
Just stay here. So for our closing remarks, I'd like to welcome Tudor Constantinescu. Tudor is Principal Advisor to the Director General of the European Commission, and he will give us some closing remarks and maybe even a small call to action.
Thank you very much. Actually, it was fascinating to listen to the whole panel, and very glad to see that despite the climatic conditions in this room, there are still so many people. I have to say, very good discussions. I appreciate it very much, and I liked also very much the last part where, of course, across the world, and I'm here in this capacity of principal advisor, but of the Director General for Energy in the Commission, but also as one of the 2 co-chairs of the Energy Efficiency in Buildings Task Group we have under the Energy Efficiency Hub, so together with Germany. And yeah, I'm happy to be in this capacity here, closing this panel. And we have many countries across the globe as members. And what you said now, I think it points exactly, buildings may be different, but people and human nature is the same. And I think that's important. And that's important in designing all the policies, in designing all the delivery mechanisms, which we need to have if we speak about the scale. The scale, what I heard from all your examples, the scale is not necessarily the tool, it's the objective we have, but what do we need to achieve this? What do we need to really move to the scale? At European level, we have at least very ambitious plans, and now with the new EPBD, we will try both at national level to have these national building renovation programs more ambitious. We also have more ambitious minimum energy performance standards. We'll have more ambitious plans for renovations, both residential and public buildings. But of course, all these have to be designed and implementing, and the focus has to be very much on implementation, how to trigger this to happen. And from what I heard, it's clear that we need more innovation. Innovation is important. Innovation is there. We find it in everything, in materials, in way to apply the materials, in the different solutions, how the technologies, and this is maybe the first thing. But even before that, what we need, it's indeed to listen to the people, to know what the people want, and to make sure that these innovations, when we try to apply them, will respond actually to the people's needs. And this would be quite essential. Then the innovations have also to bring cost reductions. That's very important, that what we do in the end of the day, it's affordable and is making these things accepted, but also economically viable, because this is important, and this will bring also the general public acceptance. In addition to the beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries, there is a need for public acceptance, as you have all underlined. And for this, we need stakeholders which to come into the picture and to contribute various of them with different capacities. They have in training, in innovation, in implementing, in construction, and so on. And yeah, and also interesting, what I heard from Sana, these delivering organizations, these market development teams, which sometimes to put all these stakeholders, all these actors together, it is important to have someone who can handle this and to support from reaching out to the beneficiaries and explaining and listening what their needs are, to showing what can be done and how it can be done, and following on that to implementing and to get the financing which is also necessary for that. Again, we try to mobilize a lot of financing, and we have done over the last years, in particular through the recovery and resilience plans at the EU level, but also through the cohesion policy structure funds. Now the issue is how to even multiply, because we know that public funding will never be sufficient for the objectives we have. Therefore, this engagement is really essential with all the stakeholders and all the actors in the sector. So very, very interesting, a lot of very good examples, and thank you very much for enriching experience.
Thank you, Peter. First of all, as a closing remark, I would like to thank the audience for staying here, because it's freezing cold, and it shows your engagement in this topic. So I'm really hopeful, and also listening to the panel discussion and seeing the presentations, I'm hopeful for the future. But there's still a lot of things to do. We still need to scale up, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I think there's a good opportunity, maybe not inside, but outside where it's warmer, to take the time and discuss with those panelists or among you, between all of you, to connect, like your introductory remark. It's connecting people, working together. Use this conference to do that. So I wish all of you a nice evening with many connections to other people and very good talks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.